Hey guys, this is Shay Jose, and today I'm coming back at you with another remake breakdown. This time we'll be covering my latest white label bootleg of David Bowie's Let's Dance. It's a pretty old track, I would say probably mid 80s. Some of you may not even have been born around then, but it's a really cool track that I've always really liked. I really wanted to make a version that I could play in my radio sets or in my sets as well. And I really couldn't find one that kind of, fit my style and kind of progressive house, melodic techno sort of style. So I decided to create my own. The track's been out on promo to selected DJs for the last, I would say, for less than a week. And it's already getting some love from the likes of Nora En Pure, Judge Jules, Solomon, and a few others. So I'll give you a little bit of a run through of the track of how it sounds, and then we'll break down the individual elements, and I'll show you how it went from the initial idea all the way to the final. Alright guys, so this remix started obviously with vocal. So I actually managed to find the studio a cappella for the Bowie track, which is cool. There was some parts of it which I couldn't use, which had a couple of layered harmonies, which just I just did not fit the mood of the track that I was going for. So I basically chopped up the a cappella and just used the parts that I needed. Because this is already a treated a cappella from the studio, there wasn't much that I actually needed to do on it. Just added a little bit of EQ, boosted some of the highs, removed some of the boxiness around 417 hertz, which is a very common frequency for male vocals. Added some vocal rider. Like I said, this was already treated vocals, but just in case if there was any changes in pitch, in volume. Added a little bit of a de-esser. Compressed them a little bit with Arvox. It's probably one of my favorite compressors for vocals. And then just added an effects rack, which was just a insert of an Echo Boy site with, which I think was half step delay. Half step delay. Which is then sidechained to the original vocal. So if you don't know how this works, it basically ducks the reverb out of the way of the dry signal and then lets it come through. To tame some of the tail of that reverb afterwards, you can put a compressor as well, which I did here, which then sidechains the reverb tail that's allowed to come through to the kick. So that kind of gives you like a really clean sort of reverb. It doesn't mush up your frequencies and alongside any other reverbs that may be running. That's really it. So I got that vocal in place. Added my favorite kick. I'm not going to even cover these. I've gone through a lot in some of my other videos as to how I process my kicks. So I just put one of my kick buses in there. The bass, is quite a few layers actually in this bass line that I actually did do. So we had in here, we basically had a sub bass. Now I usually group my basses out into different components. I had the sub bass in here, which is basically running in mono, and then added a little bit of compression, a little bit of saturation to add some extra harmonics, roughly around the 600 hertz range. So if we play that out, so we kind of wanted to get all those nice harmonics around here, and then just duck this out to the kick. So that was kind of our bass line that was running. I've set up a lot of return channels here, and I think I'm actually setting this to some extra saturation. From memory, if I have a look at this one, is 1, 2, 3. Yeah, decapitator. I'm turning this to a decapitator, which is just for some extra saturation in there. If you don't know, saturation is a great way to get your volume and extra harmonics in there. So definitely do use that if you're mixing your tracks. We've got a mid layer here for the bass line. It's pretty simple. The track's pretty static. It's in A sharp. And then a few other bass layers kind of over the top. They're all EQ'd a little bit differently. Taking out some of the mids, some of the highs, some of the other components. I'm only, gripping some of the parts like in the low, mid, and ranges in there. And then basically bussing all this out to a Pro Q. what I've done here is actually I'm using linear phase because I didn't want that low end to kind of get all mucked up. And I've just boosted some of the fundamentals in there. I was finding that it was getting drowned out a little bit, the bass lines, so I just boosted some of the fundamentals, took out some of the boxiness in that bass liner as well, around the 200, 500 and 2K range. Now I did use the clipper on this to kind of chop off some of the peaks in there and really want to squash the sound. Then I've sidechained this to the kick and then added a Pro L2, kind of really squashing the crap out of that bass line in there to make sure it's really stable. Now usually if you know your stable's kind of working well, if we put this, have a look in here, we can see it's kind of working in there, but if we play it from here where the sub comes in, now we have the sub only, you can see that it's pretty stable. I mean, the going up and down is the pumping effect that I've got, so there's no phase cancellation issues or anything like that, so that's a good sign that you know your bass is working quite well. And lastly, I actually ended up putting a track spacer, which is actually taking some of the high range away from some of the leads to make sure we give them some space in the mix. So together all the bass lines sounded like this. And so the bassline layers are all doing something slightly different. I believe we've got a rolling bass with an octave above on that one, and another single pattern. So this is kind of something that is used quite a bit in trance music, where they have different sort of patterns within a bass, doing kind of different things to give you a really cool effect. Moving on, we've got the drums. I've covered the drums as well, you know, in other tutorials, but essentially just running a bus here with some hi-hats, different sort of hats, close hats and whatnot, some extra saturation. Added an insert of reverb, similar to what I did with the vocals. Vocoder to add a little bit of snappiness to the hi-hats. Compress them a little bit with the API, which is my favorite compressor for drums. And then sidechained everything, and just added an auto pan as well to actually make sure we get a little bit of stereo width. So these were sounding quite nice actually, all these heights. And with the kick, because it's sidechained slightly with kickstart, so that's a really nice effect in there. Moving on, some of the other elements that we added, we might just check, let's have a look. We might just check some of the lead components in here. I started mucking around with another element in here, which I actually didn't end up using, so I could probably just delete this entire channel in there. We've got this kind of rapid sort of synth thing here from Diva. This is just a patch from PML, nothing crazy in here. We're just doing a little bit of glue compression on the bass, a little bit of EQ, once again ducking some of those harsh frequencies around the 200 Hertz, and then using Clipper again to tame some of those peaks, sidechaining with kickstart, and once again using track spacer in here. Now I didn't actually sidechain this to anything, so I could probably remove this, but if I would have wanted more space, I could have sidechained this synth with probably the drone or the flutter effect, depending on, you know, if they were playing at the same time. Moving on, we have the main elements, which are kind of doing like the call and response throughout the entire track, which is in the lead bus. So we had this particular lead that was running throughout the track. It's a pretty cool lead. I think just did this in Serum. This is one of my presets that I've created. And if you're a patron, you can grab these presets from my Patreon program. Just check the link below. Added a bit of EQ. Remove some of the harsh frequencies once again, and add another insert for that kind of reverb delay sort of effect. sidechaining all this again, and then once again EQing the crap out of that reverb at the end because there was just some stuff that was poking out that was just really harsh. Adding some auto filter for automation, and then one final reverb again to tame some of those really hard frequencies that were in there. Moving further down, we had 2 layers within this sort of metallic lead. These are my my patches, I believe, as well, that I use. Let me have a look. Yes, they are. Okay, so this is kind of that Fidelis sort of afterlife sort of patch sound. I've covered this before in one of my other tutorials on how to make it, so if you want to do it, just check it out above. So basically just ran some EQ, once again some inserts for delay, and what else did I do here? So Valhalla inserts for delay, and then some clipping. So this one sounds like this. So it's very metallic. I did find that it was missing a lot of mid-lows in that sound, so I added this other Anima sort of sounding lead. And then all together within the bus channel with a bit of saturation and EQ, they sounded like this together. So it's quite a big harsh sound. It's kind of the sound that a lot of the melodic techno DJs are kind of using at the moment, which is creeping into progressive house as well. So if we just add all those elements together, you'll see this kind of call and response happening here between the leads and the support plug. So let me add this, the drums, the bass, and the kick. Yep. Okay. Let's see. Now, like with any mix or any track that you make, you really got to pick, your top elements, like what's sitting at the front, what's sitting in behind as a supporting, as a supporting element. So these elements that I've highlighted here basically is the front of the song. That's pretty much 90% of the track in there. I did have these other components in here, which is like a low drone playing in the background, just for a bit of atmosphere. Another drone sound in here, which is very low in the mix. And then this ARP sound. So when you're choosing these sort of sounds, you need to make sure, do they actually work? Do I actually need them? Are they adding anything into the track? Because what ends up happening is, in your mid-low especially, if you start putting too many sounds in there, you'll get a lot of muddiness, and it's really hard to clean up because it's more of a dense space, which takes away, which makes it a lot harder to actually mix. So the less you have in there, is usually the better. However, it worked. So I ended up putting all these elements in there. So if I play them individually all together, actually. Especially this plug here. Where is it? Sorry, this one here. This one here. It kind of really drives the track. I'll play it with and without so you can hear the difference. And now with it. And as you can see here, it's just enough to kind of help give that track a bit of groove. Now, the magic comes all in the mixing. Volume, really, that's all it's about. Before I begin to mix any track, I kind of look at, what, like I mentioned before, what elements are at the front, what elements are at the back. Could it be with reverb? Could it be with volume? Usually volume is where I start first. Just make sure all the volume is adjusted to the particular to the particular item that I'm actually trying to bring forward or push back in the mix. So that's what I've done here. And that's really it. There's not much more to it. The only other thing that I would say is more around the arrangement, where what I've done is I've done a bit of a build up to bring the tension and energy up, and then kind of drop the energy and then build it up again before the next drop. It's kind of like a technique that a lot of the guys like Artbat and Camel Fat and all these guys are kind of using nowadays, where you do the build up, and then you have a big drop with another small build up, and then straight into the drop, just to kind of maintain the energy. The only other thing I've done here from memory on my master bus, did I do anything here? No, I haven't actually. Oh yeah, it's just adjusted the volume slightly. As you can see here, the volume is actually dropping slightly, and then he kicks back in. And I've removed some of the, if I go in here, band 1. So I'll let you see these. This is actually a stereo width, and I'll let you see what this actually sounds like when it's building up. I'll play it from the build up into the drop, and you can see how all these comes to effect. Then we'll turn some of these effects off so you can see what the difference is. For fear to fight is all. You could look into my eyes. Under the moonlight, the serious moonlight. So we're increasing the stereo width here, as you can see here. And if you say run, I'll run with you. And this is the other small drop. So that really helps drive the track and actually make that drop hit harder. That's just kind of one of the techniques, of the main that you can do. Because usually what you really want to do is for that drop to kind of smash your face in at the club, so you can really feel it. That's it, guys. I mean, I won't go too much through my mastering chain. If you do want me to cover that, I'm happy to do it in another video, because I don't master a particular way. I tend to actually master a lot within my bus channels, and just do very slight mastering on my master chain nowadays. But if you want me to cover that, I can do it in another video. So, yeah, once again, thank you for tuning in. If you like the track, make sure that you listen to it. You can grab it, like I said, you can grab a copy from my SoundCloud page. So what I'll do is I'll just play the radio edit, play through, and then you can comment below, and make sure you follow me on Instagram, Shay Jose Official, and on Spotify, Shay Jose. I will be doing more of this throughout the year as I get time, but for now, just enjoy the track and let me know what you think.